Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax so we can chat about what is happening up in the stars above this week. This week, today, the last day of September. I can't even believe I'm having to say that. And leading us into the first week of October, which, if you were listening to Tam and I last week, begins with the craziness of Neptune moving into the Gate of Turmoil and also crazy solar eclipse happening on the 2nd with a new moon. So today we have a lot to talk about. And indeed, in talking about some of this stuff, we'll realize that there's a lot of emotional energy moving around the planet right now. Emotional energy comes from water. Water is the element that represents the emotions. And if you think about it, how much water was just dumped on this planet, right? With Helene. Some areas so inundated you can't even gain access to them. North Carolina, Atlanta and Georgia, Florida, just Tennessee. I mean, this has just been crazy with how much water has been coming down. And it hasn't just been today or this past weekend. It's been kind of all summer long, these big water events happening at the same time that there is missing water in other places, right? I read somewhere that the Mississippi River was running so low at one point that they thought, barges and so forth would bottom out. Weird. So let's talk about all of these fun things, shall we? Here's how we're going to run the show today because I have so much to talk about and all of it happening in this first part of the week. So I can't even wait until Friday to share some of it with you. Friday, I'm sure I'll have plenty to share. Um, so instead of going into the moon and where it is today, we're going to start right in with the biggest news of the day, and that is the superior conjunction of Mercury to the sun, conjuncting in Libra. And let's just say real quick, the moon right now in Virgo, get your work on, get your service on, get your health and well-being in order. That's what the moon in Virgo is bringing to us today. And that is something we've been dealing with since yesterday early morning. And let's just move on, shall we? Because, the big news, of course, is really going to be that solar eclipse in Libra. So, as I see all of you popping in this morning, I saw Diana first off this morning, and then treat yourself. That's Julie. Good morning to Julie. And Tom, hello. Sit back and relax because here comes October. Oh, yeah, right. And treat yourself says, hey, Tom. Asa, good morning to you. Joan Durkee, good to see you. Back from your vacation, I'm guessing. And Teddy Hickox, hello. All right, so let's dive in. So, in the kind of sandwiched in all of this stuff that is going on, the big news that we've been talking about is this little tiny planet called Mercury, who has moved into a superior conjunction with the sun. And this is an important part of the Mercury cycle. And when we're talking about a Mercury cycle, let me see. I have a graphic from a class I took one year, many years ago, and I want to show it to you. Here we go. So I want to, can I highlight where we are right now? I'm going to highlight where we are right now in this. Okay. So Mercury has a cycle, just like the moon has a cycle, right? Mercury has a cycle in relationship to the sun. And when we have a conjunction of Mercury and the sun, when Mercury is between the Earth and the sun, it is a retrograde conjunction. It is called the inferior conjunction. And that is the beginning, first stage of the Mercury cycle. And now we're over here where I've just highlighted Mercury at the superior conjunction, which means that Mercury is on the far side of the sun, invisible to us here at Earth because he's lost in the glaze of the glare, not the glaze, the glare of the sun. And the superior conjunction is very similar to the full moon. right? So not in the same energies, but in the same type of energy that's happening. So when we're looking at a day like today where they come into a conjunction and literally they're less than a degree, full degree away from one another even during the solar eclipse on Tuesday, right? Or Wednesday. Um we have to talk about the importance of this because this is a time where we bring clarity and of thought and expression, all things Mercury. So thought, patterns of in the mind, logic, mental stresses, communication. Mercury is the messenger planet. So what are the messages that we're getting on a day where he is in a conjunction to the sun? So it is when he's conjunct the sun, it sort of infuses our thoughts and our conversations with a bit of vitality and purpose, right? They come together and it's almost like the messenger planet picks up marching orders from the sun and then begins the process of moving away from the sun over the next days and weeks and is ready to move. This is the halfway point to the next retrograde, right? So there's something going on here. And in Libra, this emphasizes themes of balance and harmony, relationships. It's an ideal time to seek clarity in our interactions with people and refine our ideas and align them with our core identity, with who you truly are. And it's interesting because a lot of this has been going on in my own mind. And the mind is not always a good place for this stuff to happen because you know how the mind is, right? It can kind of give you this anxiety over the thoughts that you're thinking and over the ideas that are coming up in your minds and all of this stuff. So we have to be very watchful about how it is, what it is, and how it is, I suppose, that we're thinking during this period. Now, this conjunction brings up a sharp awareness of the decisions that we're about to make or that we've been contemplating, particularly in areas of life that are related to Libra, partnerships, justice, beauty, relationships, agreements and contracts, things like that. And it's so close to the solar eclipse the choices we make now have the potential to carry significant weight in the coming weeks and possibly even triggering shifts that will unfold over time, over the next 6 months until the next solar eclipse, which won't happen until March or April of 2025. So it is a time then where our lights are on, right? This is like the full Mercury, right? The full Mercury is in a superior eclipse, is like I said, like the new moon, or excuse me, the full moon, where there's this clarity, right? This light that shines, the aha moments, right? It's suddenly things making sense that didn't make sense before. And it feels like we have this full illumination, but not always exact clarity about what it is we're seeing, feeling, sensing. So it can feel a little bit like an overload when we have all of this stuff, coming through our minds at this superior conjunction, which is where we are. So we might call it intellectual mental stress. We might call this the time when we begin to digest all of the thoughts that we have been thinking, all of the ideas that have been percolating, all of the mental information load stream of consciousness, if you will, or stream of unconsciousness, such as it is in the world sometimes, that have been coming in to us over these since the last superior conjunction. And of course, then it gives us this opportunity to develop, potential wisdom. And that's an interesting thing to think about right now because the sun is about ready to move into the gate of wisdom, right? Or the gene key of wisdom. So we have a time to prepare for the eclipse. Now, eclipses are not things that happen the visual happens in the moment, right? So on October 2nd, we see the solar eclipse, or we won't here in the Americas, but whoever sees the solar eclipse will see it. That's the visual part of it. But by all means, it doesn't just take place on that day. The energy of the solar eclipse has likely been with us for at least the last 2 months, if not three, right? As we're moving away from the eclipse pattern in March, and those next 3 months go by, and now we start to prepare for the next one. So they sort of roll through, right? They're kind of built one on the other. Now, the solar eclipse is a symbol of a new beginning, right? It's a new moon at this time, and it is new beginnings. And with Mercury joining the sun just before this solar eclipse, there's this added layer of mental clarity and intention that we can bring to that new moon. So the conversations, thoughts, and insights that we have today can serve as precursors to transformative energies. That's what eclipses do. They're game changers, right? They're hopped up moons, and they set the stage for what we wish to manifest or to let go of. Either way, it works, for um, this particular time that we're in. So take the opportunity then today with Mercury in this position to have important discussions or conversations that really mean something. And especially where you have to bring fairness or equality or mutual understanding to the plate. And remember that communication is half listening, half speaking. It's not all talk all the time, right? We have to have both. So, whether you're in a position to negotiate a deal or resolve a conflict or simply express your needs, now is the time to bring these things out into the open, to really be honest with yourself, but honest with others as well. So, when with Mercury's energy this strong, it's a great day to journal, maybe your thoughts, your whatever's coming up, right? Sometimes it's easier to access the mind's chatter when you're writing because there's a physical element then that completes the circuit. And if nothing else, use this conjunction today to prepare mentally and emotionally for the fresh start that the solar eclipse is going to bring. And that, of course, will all be in the sign of Libra. So if you have your astrology chart handy, then this is where it is that you want to look, where Libra is. That's the house that the fresh start can happen in. And I need to look at something because I want to see today is the 30th of September. So the Mercury conjunction with the moon, with the sun, excuse me, is happening at the gate 18, which is the gate of perfectionism, right? Or judgment. Remember on Friday, we did this full on depth into the gene key 18, which is the gate 18 in your human design. The gate 18 being the first gate in the spleen that the sun hits every year right at this time, and then begins the round through the spleen center, bringing up all of the shadow energies that lie hidden in the survival energies of the spleen. So, one of those that we talked about on Friday was perfection, right? Perfection seeking, um, the idea that we're needing to find perfection. Perfection is the highest expression, right? We're moving from judgment into integrity and into perfection. And the Sun and Mercury in that conjunction at the gate 18 is bringing that into closer mind level, closer to our conscious level, and helping us to get through this period of time. So it is kind of like the sun and Mercury shining a bright spotlight, helping us to see more clearly before that solar eclipse takes us into the new territory. And when I woke up this morning, Terry was already up. I don't know what time he got up, but I looked out my bedroom window, and over here in the northeast was the crescent moon, right? It's the waning crescent because it is getting ready to move into the dark of the moon, which then leads to the new moon. And it was extraordinary to be able to see that. First of all, because often we have clouds and I miss everything, but this morning it was there. So visually seeing that this closing phase of the moon is riding right along with the superior conjunction of Mercury and the sun. So beautiful, right? Prepare mentally, prepare emotionally for what the solar eclipse may bring, and also recognize that some of those things may already be being brought, right? They're being brought to you. And I always find that interesting with the eclipses. Okay, so let's see what else. Good morning to Narges. Good morning to JLo. Good morning to Marianne. TD Hawk, hello. Christine, hello. So now I want to talk about something that we did talk about this on Wednesday's broadcast for what we're looking at in terms of the month of October. And that is that Neptune has been sitting in the gate 25, which is the gate of the love of spirit, right? So this has been our first call that Neptune, the planet of spirituality, is pulling us higher into a higher perspective, right? Wanting to see our divinity and to live our divinity, right? That's the totally big theme about Neptune, is to live in your divinity and to live from intuition, from an inner connection, and blurring the borderline, if you will, between the physical and the spiritual. And finding that is all here in the heart, right? Right in the heart. The gate 25 is called the gate of the love of spirit, or the gate of spirit. It is where we awaken to this idea of being having a higher self, right? Being a fifth dimensional um, creature, right? Having that access to the fifth dimension in our physical expression living here on this planet. But now Neptune goes back into the gate 36. So now hopefully we have got some kind of sense of ourselves as spiritual beings, and intuition being something that is our gift, a birthright here while we're on the planet Earth. Because now he moves back into the gate 36, which is called the gate of crisis in traditional human design. And it is called the gift of exploration in the quantum human design. But the energy of Neptune at this gate focuses on emotional turbulence and the potential for growth through challenging experiences. So if we've embodied ourselves as divine beings, then any of these kinds of challenges that occur are I want to say easier managed. That doesn't mean we don't feel the emotion around them, but we get a sense of the purpose behind everything, the rightness, the perfection, if you will, of what is going on. And this energy often stirs up uncertainty in all of us, or emotional highs and emotional lows. And it urges us to confront the unknown, right? This is the gate 36. And if you don't have that gate defined by birth, then you suddenly have it defined, and have had it defined already by Neptune earlier in the year. And then he made that transition into the 25 for a short time. Now he is back at the 36. And this Neptune's influence here adds a level of sort of spiritual, maybe, or intuitive exploration, encouraging us to embrace the lessons from the hidden lessons in the crises that we have been experiencing, both collectively but individually as well. So look at the crises moments in your life over the last several months, and how have you adopted maybe a more spiritual point of view about what you're experiencing? Do you keep getting drug into the more physical, emotional expression of those things, the emotional high and the emotional low? Um, because now it is really going to be about trusting in the chaos, which I know sounds so absurd, doesn't it? Trusting in the chaos. But that's exactly what's necessary here. That the chaos brings opportunities for inner transformation and for clarity, especially especially when we are guided by our higher awareness, or our higher self, right? Our fifth dimensional self. So that's Neptune in the gate 36. If we look at Neptune now in the gene key 36. Now we see layers of energy, and we're moving from turbulence or turmoil to compassion, the highest expression, via our humanity, the gift expression. So there's this transformative journey that we're on as we move through these different levels that are in the gene keys. If we take this into that deeper look, so let's look at the shadow of turmoil or turbulence or chaos or crisis, whichever any one of those words fits. It's all about emotional instability and the tendency that we have when things get emotional to react versus or get caught up in uncertainty rather than responding to what is happening. It reflects the chaotic inner state that arises when we resist the natural flow of life. And often it triggers our survival based responses like fear or panic or withdrawal. OMG, right? This is if you guys only had access to my inner mind and what I put myself through all day yesterday and this morning so far. Um, God, I don't even know how I can go on with my life sometimes because of what goes on in the mental sphere of being a Gemini. At any rate, this is a time then when we get to look at these patterns of emotions that take us to this very core need to survive. And when we're in that panic mode, or when we're in that survival based sphere, it's very hard to make good decisions, right? Because now you're making decisions out of reactionary energy rather than response energy. So, very important distinction because it's in response that we can take the moment, the time to breathe, to consider our next move, to consider what is the impact of the emotion that we are being barraged with in that time. So, when we're in the shadow of this turmoil or turbulence, we may feel overwhelmed by the emotional waves that Neptune is stirring up. This is storms, right? And Neptune at 36 is like the stormy seas, like the waves, the surge, if you will, that Hurricane Helene had so strongly brought to the coastline of Florida, right? It's as above, so below. And while, it's destructive in some respects, it leads us to anxiety in others. It triggers our dramatic emotional reactions, especially when there is a lot of uncertainty attached to it, which there is, right? Everything is uncertain. And then it's easy to fall into patterns of drama and victimhood. This is literally a Piscean gate, and in Pisces, we are dealing with the energy of victimhood. In Virgo, we deal with martyrdom. In Pisces, we deal with victimhood. Either way you look at it, we're at a crossroads of letting these things go. And the emotions, of course, being overwhelming. But the lesson of the shadow, which is the important thing we got to learn here. What's the lesson of the shadow? Is to sit with the emotional discomfort rather than react to it. It invites us to explore what the root is of the emotional crisis and to develop a deeper understanding of how fear influences our behavior. What does the pattern of fear, and it doesn't even have to be fear like the kind where your life is, you're in mortal danger, just the fear of not having enough, not being enough. This week's fear has been all about this idea of judgment and not being perfect and that type of thing. And what does that trigger within us? So, of course, the shadow energy, it needs to be lifted to the gift level, right? And the gift of humanity is what the gate 36 holds for us. And when we're in the gift of humanity, we see crisis as a doorway to greater empathy and understanding. And instead of running to away from turmoil, we sort of embrace it. We recognize that it's a shared human experience. We are all in it together. We all have emotional energy. We might all be reactive to different things that are going on in our lives, but it is a shared human experience to move into these emotions. And the gift in the gift in this gene key is about embracing our vulnerability and then using it to connect to others in a more meaningful way, right? Connection, something, a thread that brings us all together, right? We may not be the ones whose homes have been destroyed in by a hurricane, but we can certainly feel empathy and compassion for our fellow human beings who have been brought to this kind of crisis in their lives. So in the gift, Neptune at 36 teaches us to respond to the crises in our lives with openness and a heart-centered awareness, being in the heart, being in love, in the love energy. We begin to realize then that every emotional upheaval holds the potential for growth, not just for ourselves, but for the entire collective. And the gift calls us to step into our role as compassionate participants in the human journey, which you are. And that helps us to see our struggles as part of a larger story of shared growth. We're not in it alone. And the lesson, the gift of humanity, is about softening our hearts and learning to offer through the lens of empathy the gift of love and compassion to others. It kind of helps us understand that no one is immune to suffering. And by embracing this truth, we can build bridges of support for one another, right? Um, Healing and understanding being, other bridges that we can build. And, there's a lot of emotional turmoil, on the planet. If it isn't a hurricane, it's this war, this potential for war, this the the human condition that has been wrought upon the people, particularly in the Mid East at this point in time. And again, we don't have to embrace the right or wrong of what is happening. We just have to be able to feel with compassion the connection that, you know, what does that say? There for the grace of God go I, right? It could be us that is in that kind of turmoil. So when we're lifted to the gift of humanity, we are then able to see where compassion plays. This is the siddhi is compassion. And it's the transcendence, if you will, of individual and collective suffering. We get over it. At this level, there is an understanding that all crises and turmoil are a part of the divine unfolding. And compassion here is not just a feeling, it's not just an emotion, it's a state of being. And it's where we embody a profound sense of unity with all life, with all suffering, with all beings. In the city, when we reach this city, we are no longer attached to the emotional dramas because we see beyond them, right? Compassion becomes our natural state of being. It becomes our natural response to everything that we get triggered by. We understand that all beings are on a path of growth and that all suffering is temporary. This is the realm of pure, unconditional love, right? Compassion, unconditional love, where we offer our hearts in service to the world. So big, big jump, isn't it? The lesson of the city teaches that there's nothing to fear in the grand scheme of things, that it's the realization that even in moments of crisis, we are always held by a greater cosmic love. There's a greater glue, if you will, that holds us all together. And by embodying compassion for self and others, we can become beacons of light for one another. We can be lighthouses. By the way, this is me on a whole separate track. Take a listen to Stevie Nicks' new song that was just dropped on Friday called "The Lighthouse." Whoa! It is, quite the song and, haunting in its beauty, haunting in its words. It's just pretty amazing. I found it on YouTube, so it's called "The Lighthouse" by Stevie Nicks. Take a listen. All right. So in conclusion, then the Neptune sitting at gate or gene key 36 asks us to move through the depths of emotional crisis with trust in the process. By embracing that turmoil, that turbulence, that crisis, we can awaken the gift of humanity, which then connects us more deeply with one another. And ultimately, we reach then the siddhi of compassion, where we become instruments of divine love and service to the world. Tall order, right? Definitely check that out, Julie. It's a great song. I it was it came to me in a weird sort of way, and then I had to send it to my daughters because I thought, it's very much about women taking back their power and being a lighthouse for one another. I just kind of love that. All right, any questions about the gene keys? The gene key that Neptune is sitting at, or the gate that Neptune is sitting at. Let's talk for a second about how that might impact you personally. For example, I said at the beginning, if you do not have the gate 36 defined, suddenly you do, all the way through the end of this year and into the next year. I just ordered my 2025 ephemeris, so I don't even know yet how far into 2025. I think I looked it up in my bigger book, and it was like into February, that we're dealing with this turmoil, this crisis energy. And at that point in time, then Neptune will move back to the 25, which is the gate of the love of spirit. So there's a certain innocence in it when we allow ourselves to be this vulnerable to the emotional things, to feeling the feels, right, that we are feeling. Now, let's take a look. What was next on my little agenda this morning? Let's take a look at um, the new moon. This is a pretty powerful new moon. As I look at the chart of the new moon, you guys can see it here. The moon and the sun are at 10 degrees 4 minutes of Libra. This is a lunar or solar eclipse. If the south node is close to the sun and moon, so this is a south node eclipse. It is karmic. It is hopefully releasing us from some baggage that we need to be released from. And as well, take a look there next to the sun. Right here is the black moon Lilith, who is also at 10 degrees, but a few more minutes. And then Mercury, who we just talked about in the conjunction to the sun today, will still be within a degree of the solar eclipse on October 2nd. Now, this is an interesting thing because these bodies coming together in the eclipse signal something that we will be dealing with all the way until we get into the next eclipse season. And that won't be until the spring. So we have this 6 month or so period of time where these are highly activated. And eclipses, partial, full, moon, or sun or solar, are always game changers. They represent significant turning points where endings and beginnings intersect, right? They're crossover points. We come to a crossroads, right, in a way. And a new moon solar eclipse brings powerful new opportunities, but when it's conjunct to the south node, like this one is, it often relates to letting go or releasing old patterns or karmic completion, right? Karmic completion. Think about that, right? That's a big deal. Now, Libra is the sign that the new moon solar eclipse is in. It is the sign that we have the black moon Lilith in, the south node is in, and Mercury is in. So we have a stellium, right? We have a plenty of planets that are pointing us in Libran directions. And Libra is the sign of relationships and balance and harmony and justice. Justice, that's a big one here. So this eclipse may focus on dynamics that are occurring within partnerships, both personal and professional, right? It doesn't say it's just marriage. It doesn't say it's just significant other. It's all relationships. But more importantly, it's the agreements that we make within those relationships that we're really talking about. How do we carry ourselves in that relationship? What have we agreed to either consciously or unconsciously? And how are we behaving in those agreements in either a conscious or unconscious way. And essentially, the imbalances that we are acting from need to be brought into balance, need to be addressed in some way. So, the potential themes for this solar eclipse period of time, including the South Node and Black Moon Lilith and Mercury here, is about rebalancing relationships that you are in, releasing codependent patterns. That's the negative part of Libran energy, is this tendency to codependence, or also to people please, to say or do things designed to make others happy, but leaving yourself out of that happiness quotient. So we have to confront these imbalances in our relationships, but imbalances where on fairness, on justice or equality, and then we have to shift toward more authentic relationships. Right, that's the key. Now, in the conjunction with the South Node, the solar eclipse here is very potent because the South Node represents what we're holding on to in terms of past karma, old habits, and areas of life where we need to release or transcend outdated behavior. So find Libra in your natal chart. Hold on, I'm going to highlight this for you so you can see what the symbol looks like. I think I just mucked that up, but let's see if you can see where I highlighted that is what the symbol of Libra looks like, right? It kind of looks like the balance, the scales, okay? And find that, and by house, that is the area of life where more balance is needing to come into your life. All right. This is where things have been out of balance. In Libra, of course, we are also, kind of tied to people pleasing, over compromising, reliance on external validation rather than just knowing who we are and what we're doing is correct for us. We're looking for that validation outside of us. So, karmic relationships coming to a close, maybe with the South Node involved. Releasing patterns where we've overcompromised or self sacrificed or trying to keep harmony because, we're not doing it, because we're not paying attention. We're really doing it as a way to keep harmony, to try to keep a balance. But that becomes over compromising, and compromise is good unless you're giving away the farm, right? Then it's not compromise. Now we've created a lose win or a win lose situation. And what we're looking for is win-win, not lose-lose or win-lose, right? That's and how we do that is we let go of the past and we let go of the baggage. We understand that the South Node points us toward the North Node, and that North Node is the energy of independence and self-assertion and identity because it's in Aries, right? That's the opposite side. So we're moving out of those old patterns. A solar eclipse allows us a new beginning in releasing those patterns. Now, let's take a look at its conjunction to the Black Moon Lilith, because she symbolizes sort of the wild and rebellious feminine energy that is often repressed within us. Whether you're male or female, there's this feminine energy that gets repressed, and it's sometimes where taboo subjects arise. It is associated with our untamed nature, our wild woman self, right? Our wild selves, and part of ourselves that we keep hidden from everyone, right? We keep it hidden because it's not okay, right? It's not going to be accepted by the world at large, right? So in this eclipse, Lilith's presence suggests a deep awakening of the raw primal emotions in relationships, but also forcing us as individuals to confront our desires, to confront power struggles or the societal things that we do that have suppressed our truth or suppressed who we really want to be, right? So the themes with the Black Moon Lilith here come up about repressed feelings or shadow elements in our relationships coming up to the surface, facing taboo subjects like jealousy, desire, or control issues, the things that we just don't want to look at, right? Talk to the hand. And we need to empower the voice of the unheard or marginalized aspects of ourselves, the part we keep clamped down because it isn't appropriate. It isn't nice girls don't say things like that, or nice people don't say things like that. So we're bringing all of these things up and owning our true power in relationships. That's a big theme here. Standing up for our own needs, even when it feels uncomfortable. And likely it will, because we've come to really believe that we need to suppress those parts of ourselves that we deem not acceptable, or that we feel like society would deem unsuccess or unacceptable. And of course, Mercury, the conjunction with Mercury and all of this. We talked a little bit about that with the superior conjunction of the day. But Mercury represents communication, the thought processes, right? The whole mental field, mental clarity, information sharing, and of course, communication, talking and communication with others, but also within ourselves. And it can amplify the need. This solar eclipse can amplify the need of Mercury to have honest conversations with mental shifts that come when we really listen to our partners, when we really listen to how we can balance the different things that we're hearing about ourselves or others, about things that we're hearing from the people that we're in relationship with. So the eclipse is really emphasizing this need that we have for clear, direct communication, possibly around issues of fairness within the relationship, or what you personally need within the relationship. And of course, in the outer world, things like justice and equality, the big themes of Libra in the outer world. And with the South Node involved with Mercury, Black Moon, Lilith, Sun, and Moon, it can also point to revisiting past conversations or resolving unresolved issues from the past, right? It kind of does take us back to the past. So the themes with Mercury involved in the solar eclipse might be around honest communication and helping us to resolve unresolved issues within our relationships, revisiting past conversations. Perhaps we left it hanging and we need to find closure or clarity in that conversation. There can be mental breakthroughs here or shifts in perspective. And it can also be mental anxiety or mental breakdowns. So we have to watch where's our mind and what are we focusing on. And there can be really an increased mental awareness that we have on hidden or repressed aspects of ourselves, of our relationships, right? Because all of that being influenced by the Black Moon Lilith, also engaged in this solar eclipse. So, the solar eclipse is likely to bring a deep focus on relationships, especially where there's imbalance or where we have been overly compromising, or where there's been a power dynamic at play, right? A power struggle almost even. The South Node suggests that the old karmic patterns may be ready for release, right? We're ready to let go of those struggles, and particularly those that are no longer serving our personal growth, but also our evolutionary growth as human beings. And Lilith's influence may bring up the hidden or repressed feelings, right? And they are uncomfortable when Lilith brings them up, right? We're not quite sure what to say about them or what to do about them, but we're being encouraged to embrace our inner power and our truth, even if it feels uncomfortable, right? Mercury's conjunction here will heighten our mental awareness, our mental clarity around whatever these issues are, helping us to communicate effectively and to bring closure where it's needed. So there's an element, even though this is a new moon, there's an element of closure happening here, right? An element that feels a little like the full moon in that we're maybe releasing something because the South Node is what's there, right? It is a releasing moon. So how do we navigate this solar eclipse, right? How do we move through this in a way that is peaceful, right? Libra ultimately looking for peace, right? That is peace, but without giving away everything, right? Without overly compromising. So, one, be open to letting go of, releasing any relationship dynamics that don't serve you, right? If you've been overly compromising, giving away, uh, telling people that it's okay to do that to you, but inside you're screaming, you've got to cut that off. You've got to stop that. Embrace any of the repressed feelings that you're having, any truths that are coming up. Don't shy away from the uncomfortable emotions. It might be good to have a journal handy, where you could actually address those in a safe space where you don't have to bring it out face to face with someone else in a confrontational way. But having that honest conversation will have to happen at some point in time, right? If what comes up is this repressed feeling of not being honored in a relationship, then it isn't something that you can just journal about and have done with it. At some point, you have to actually confront it and change the dynamics of that relationship, whether that begins with a conversation or you yourself choose to do things differently, which then changes the dynamic. That is up to you and how you're going to do this. Focus on your own inner need for balance and harmony and integrity. While Libra encourages us to be in harmony with others, the eclipse, the eclipse, a very strong one, is asking you to find harmony within first, right? If you don't have harmony within, how can you see harmony outside of you, right? Big deal. All right, questions about this. What orbs would I give an eclipse? I would say probably 5 to 10, easily 5 to 10. If you have a planet sitting close by in this in Libra, if you are a Libra, as you are, Asa, um, it is going to impact you in one way, shape, or form. And wherever you have Libra in your chart, if you have no Libra planets, then you can look to the ruling planet of a Libra, which is Venus, and see, well, where's Venus? Well, Venus is in Scorpio during the eclipse, so she's bringing up the depth of stuff that might apply to whatever house that you have that eclipse in. I noticed Christine says her Libra is in the fourth house. If she had no planets in the fourth house, she could still bet that relationships that have to deal with home or family, mother, sisters, women relatives will be coming up to the surface. And it doesn't mean they have to be bad things. It could be like, oh, yeah, we want to spend more time together, or that kind of thing would still be coming up, even though she has no planets there, right? So everybody's chart is a little different, a lot different, actually. So, it can, bring up a whole host of different experiences for people. Think about too, Christine, the fourth house is also the house of foundation, security, right? The stability, the roots that you have, and how are the roots being changed? How's the foundation changing? Um, I think I also have Libra in my fourth house. So, fourth house, right? Roots. Where are the roots changing? Okay, Asa says, this eclipse is my son's fifth house conjuncting his Mars and Pallas. Can you give him some things he should be aware of? Yes, passive aggressive action, things that he does that are self sabotaging, entering into relationships or into agreements that aren't supporting him, paying lip service to them, like, yeah, I'm making you happy because I'm saying yes to something. Mars would be asking him to stand up for his truth, for his own power. Remember, Mars right now is in Cancer as well. So there is this sort of protective thing going on as well. He needs to nurture himself. That would be the number one thing I would say for him. Good morning, Jana Graskust. It's good to see you. Libra is in her third house, so it has to do with what you're writing, speaking, talking about, thinking about. What are you learning? What are you teaching others about Libran themes? So, relationships, the divine feminine, perhaps, or balance and harmony and fairness and justice, equality, marginalization, all of those themes, perhaps, that are coming for you to speak to. And J-Lo has Libra and Pluto in the 5th and the 11th. So this has to do with your goals and dreams, your hopes, your aspirations. And if Libra is in the 5th, I'm guessing, and the 11th holds Pluto. So Libra, you have an Aries Pluto, or do you have a Libra? It seems like you would have a Libra Pluto. Oof, tell me. TD Hawk, my moon is in Libra in the 8th house, I think. So, what's transforming in your life, Tamara? 8th house issues are always about the rebirthing process, death and rebirth, and all of that. So, the heads up here for you would be about transformation, dealing with resources that you share with others, perhaps finances, debt and credit, they're also a part of that. And how can you create a new beginning free of debt, perhaps? And that's interesting because you can be in debt in your relationships too, not just finances, but in the emotional connections you have with others. And are you giving more than you're receiving? That type of thing might be coming up. Marianne has her Libra in the 11th house, which is the house of vision and hopes and dreams, how you serve humanity, your need to be able to share with others or serve in the capacity of helping others. So I think this opportunity for you, Marianne, really goes to what is my greater vision? What is my, what are my hopes and my dreams? And is it time to start something there? Where have I been not paying close attention to that in my life because I'm giving away my energy to other people? I'm doing things that other people want me to do rather than the things that I want to do. So I'm not focusing on my own dream or my own goals. So realign to your goals. That would be a big deal there for you. Libra or Asa on point. Yep, I think he was listening. I hope so. No debt, but shared property. And yes, giving more. Uh, yeah, if you're giving more than you are receiving, it is a relationship or a situation that's out of balance, right? It's not in harmony and it's not fair, right? All of the like negative sides of Libra coming up here. And with the North Node, remember the North Node is in Aries. So while we have the eclipse and the South Node and Mercury and the Black Moon Lilith all in Libra, it's really pointing us away from those negative Libra traits and more toward the North Node Aries traits, which are about independence and boldness and being your own person and having the courage of your convictions and all of that. It's just because the South Node's involved doesn't mean we stay in the past. We have to move. We have to move to the North Node, right? The North Node says, "Be you, do you." Be brave, be courageous, step outside of the box that you've put yourself in so that you can be free of those old constraints, right? Make new agreements, right? Just because you have either consciously or unconsciously entered into an agreement in a relationship or into a situation does not mean you have to stay there. That would be the worst case scenario, is that you stay and or you stay stuck in the old pattern in that relationship by holding yourself to an old agreement. Rewrite the contract, right? And be willing to say to the other person involved, if there's another person involved, is this is how I see my life going from here on, and these are my hopes and these are my dreams, this is what I want. What do you want? How do you see your life playing out from here? Giving that other person the opportunity. And then once you both know what each other wants or where, things have been maybe out of balance, then you can have a conversation, right? Where you can solve the problem. You can heal the issue. You can bring it to a compromise without being compromising, right? You can create win-win. You can make key decisions. But a lot of times I think in we feel fear around standing up for ourselves or for choosing for ourselves, right? I think the conversation often is about being selfish then or self-centered. So we choose for other instead of ourselves. And this whole eclipse would seem to be saying that's an old paradigm, right? And your path of service, helping others, really begins with the strength that you have for yourself, the choices you make for you. Keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind. All right. What does it mean if the south node is same as the rising sign? In that case, then I would say that your lifetime is very karmic, and that you're facing things in this lifetime that were left unfinished in a previous lifetime. And or hoping in this lifetime to evolve away from certain personality characteristics or flaws, if you will. Perhaps in another lifetime giving just dissolving yourself into others. You're not saying what sign that's in, um, but if there has been a lifetime of your dissolving into group or into dynamics of group and not individuating, this lifetime is likely calling you to individuate, especially if this is across Libra and Aries, right? Because that would mean the North Node is in Aries. Okay. Does that make sense? If not, let me know. All right. So I also wanted to go through the gene key for the solar eclipse because it's a different gene key than the one that we've got for the week. On October 2nd, we will have the gene key 48. The sun will be in 48, the earth in 21. The 48 is the shadow of inadequacy. And the importance here is about feeling not good enough, right? So even though the solar eclipse, I mean, this is still, inadequacy that we have to move through, not being good enough, not seeing ourselves as worthy of. It is the gift of resourcefulness. And finally, the city of wisdom. So this provides a powerful framework then for all of the solar eclipse work that we are doing as a collective, but also personally. So I've got 5 minutes here, so I'm going to run through this kind of quickly. We can have a deeper discussion on this if you so desire, maybe on Friday. So we're looking at the shadow of inadequacy here, the feelings of not being enough, right? Not having enough, not being good enough. It's the core fear that's associated with the sun's placement during this solar eclipse, and it manifests as a deep-seated feeling of not being prepared and not knowing enough or lacking the skills to meet life's challenges. And that can lead to hesitation, paralysis. All of the gates on the spleen have a paralysis in the fear, right? We get caught, we get stuck. And then maybe we overcompensate in some way by constantly seeking more knowledge, another course, another book, another certification, as external validation that we are enough, right? I have plenty of certificates on my wall here in front of me that prove that I fall into this trap at times myself, right? Now, the impact of the solar eclipse being here is that it will likely bring these feelings to the surface for you, especially in the context of your relationships and balance and justice. We might start to feel like we're not capable of handling certain relationship changes or societal changes. And then that leads to feelings of self doubt and indecision. Now we're in the fear. Now we're just barely surviving. And in the Black Moon Lilith's role here, right, she's amplifying the raw primal feelings that are connected to inadequacy and especially in power dynamics between people, right? In especially when we have certain societal expectations in the roles that we play. And that means we might feel compelled to confront our own inner fears, our judgments, our fear of not being enough, of not being good enough to be in this relationship or to be able to do these things. When we look at the gift of resourcefulness, now we're raising this up, right? We're unlocking resourcefulness. And that means we've moved beyond the fear of inadequacy. And it teaches us that we already possess everything we need to solve problems, to find balance, to have loving relationships. We just need to trust our inner reservoir of creativity and solutions. In the I Ching, this particular hexagram is called the well. And it is really where, when we have a problem that we are met with, right, or we need a solution, that we don't literally have to go outside looking for the answer, that the answer is held within us, right? Resourcefulness is about using what you have rather than thinking from what you lack and going out to try to find more information to fill that gap. Libra's influence here means using your intuitive depth to bring harmony and balance, right? That's the same thing that we've been talking about all through this. And then Mercury's conjunction helps you to articulate your resources in a practical way. Like, what do I really have at my fingertips that I can bring to bear in any solution that I need to find. And then finally, embodying wisdom. The city of wisdom represents the highest expression of this particular gene key. And at this level, the feeling of inadequacy completely dissolves. It can't exist because we found a profound, timeless understanding that everything is perfectly aligned. Wisdom is not about having answers to every question, it's about trusting that life itself is the answer, right? There's a deep acceptance when we get to the city of wisdom that all challenges are part of the unfolding perfection. Right? We're building on that perfection gene key from this week and moving into inadequacy, the fear of inadequacy, and wisdom for the next week. And the eclipse is the portal way for all of this. It's a potent time for transformation, for starting something new. And maybe it's time for us to access deep wisdom, the wisdom that's inherent within all of us. In the context of relationships and social justice, we may come to realize that every challenge we face is simply a part of life's perfection, even if it appears chaotic or unresolved, which likely it will, right? Wisdom here is about allowing life to just flow without trying to control or fix every detail. It's just not our job. All right. So we'll talk more about this one because I think it's an important one for us to deal with. It's 9 o'clock. I am going to pull a card though, because I want to pull a card. So even if that makes me late to my next thing, I wanted to pull a Intuitive Whispers Oracle card this morning by Maud Hurst, so that we would have intuitive wisdom to deal with the solar eclipse and all of the energy that's being brought to us. Uh, which gate was it? My projector child just has so much to say today. Which gate? Ooh, how fun! Move through, move through your fear. Look at that. There's a black moon in the picture here, which reminds me of the black moon Lilith, but also could represent the new moon because in the new moon it's dark. We don't see it. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, 41 is a 5. Let's see what this means. I love how the cards always track along with our themes. All right, move through your fear. What if just on the other side of fear was your biggest opportunity or breakthrough? Whether you are on your healing journey or moving towards something new in your life, fear may be raising its head and stopping you in its tracks. Often that fear comes in the form of negative thoughts and beliefs, but don't let the fear win. There may have been a time in your life when fear was a helpful protection, but right now it may be stopping you on your path to success. The way to move past fear is not to ignore it or pretend it isn't there, but instead to identify it, feel it, and notice what thoughts and feelings arise. Move through it rather than around it. Now, how to move through your fear? Ask yourself, where is fear showing up in my life? What is that fear holding me back from achieving? How does fear show up in your body physically? Perhaps in the belly or the chest, or does it affect your breath? What thought appears when you feel fearful? Getting to know your fear makes it much less scary. You begin to realize it is simply thoughts and sensations and not reality. You can then choose to step out of your thoughts and redirect your focus in the direction that you want to go. Move through your fear. So profound. So profound. Move through your fear. Card number 41. And the deck is Intuitive Whispers Oracle by Maud Hurst. Now, that's it for me this morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you on Friday. Bye for now.